So whether you're an online viewer or you're one of my patients and I asked you to watch this video, I wanted to talk to you today about the adrenal glands. And what are they? Essentially, they're little walnut-sized glands right on top of your kidneys. So ad means on top of, renal means kidney, so the organ on top of your kidneys. Very, very important organ. Most of you have never heard of them. It is the most important set of two organs in the entire body, in my opinion. Unlike the appendix or the gallbladder, if you take it out, you would die. So obviously we need to make sure that they're functioning at the highest level. Now, what do they do? Well, if you were to imagine the adrenal glands, they're kind of like a peach. So take a bite out of it. The middle of the peach, or the middle of the adrenal gland, makes adrenaline and noradrenaline. Most people have heard of adrenaline, so adrenal, adrenaline, right? That's kind of like the gas. It gives you superhuman strength. It allows you to do a ton of things during the day, okay? Now if you move on into the fleshy part of the peach, there's 3 different layers, and they make all sorts of different hormones. One of the layers makes aldosterone, which regulates salt, water, and an electrolyte balance in the body. The middle layer in there makes all the sugar-related hormones, also known as cortisol. People heard of it as a stress hormone. Cortisol, essentially, under stress, puts blood sugar into the system so you have energy. It also converts into cortisone, which is an anti-inflammatory hormone, so a lot of people come to me with pain. If their adrenals are off, usually they have a pain issue as well. So I'm trying to treat the body holistically here. One of the other areas of the peach, if you will, the adrenals, the deepest layer is they make sex hormones. So estrogen, testosterone, DHEA, very, very important. That's like a longevity hormone a lot of people have research with. So it's a very important organ to live your best life. So what causes adrenal issues? Well, I see in clinical practice about 9 of the most common reasons are, number 1, a stressful situation. Maybe it was a very, very stressful, very acute situation and it's gone now, like a romantic breakup, or maybe like a health crisis in a family member, or a school issue, or a sports issue, or a work issue, whatever. It was like one big event and then it's gone. Usually that, depending on how resilient your body is, depending on how healthy your body is, and supportive your environment was at the time, you may have got through that okay, and maybe it took a beating on your adrenals, okay? Number 2, chronic stress. Moms are like wicked included in this. Teachers are wicked included in this. Why? Because there's like little things, little fires that they're just putting out all the time. They're just always in a chronic stress state. They're just like always doing something to put out a little stress. Any one of those by itself, not so bad. But 100 of those in a row over 100 days, the body's like, dude, I need a break, okay? Number 3 I see, bad diet. Standard American diet, a sugar diet, okay? Remember how the adrenal glands make cortisol? Well, one of the jobs of cortisol is to prevent low blood sugar. So if people are eating sugar diets, right, the body's blood sugar is going up and then crashing down. Every time it crashes down, the adrenals, the brain is like, yo, adrenals, make some hormones, put the floor in it so you don't pass out and get dizzy, right? So that as the blood sugar comes down, the adrenals have to support it, okay? So typically when you're trying to heal the adrenal glands, you're trying to get off the sugar. So to keep that even and give the adrenals a break. Number 4, I see this more in athletes, overtraining. They're going, they're training 6-7 days a week, they train hard, and they never give the body time to recover. I see this in weightlifters all the time. They're like, oh, I did shoulders today, I did back the day before, I did legs the other day, today's arm day. Well, every day is adrenal day. So, you know, if God took a break and took a rest, you need to find a rest day too, okay? The other one, often underlooked, is caretakers. People that had maybe like dementia or Alzheimer's, people in their families, and they, or maybe like a loved one has a disability or something like that, or just you're caretaking for a lot of different people in your life. That caretaker usually doesn't have the spotlight on them because they're rightfully so trying to take care of someone, but just that long-term taking care of someone else and putting their needs last, that kind of catches up with your physiology over a while and the adrenals get tired. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Number 6, I see workaholics all the time. People that are just, they just have to work. They just never stop working. They're always working. Dads, I'm looking at you. I love it that you're a provider. I love it. I work a lot too, but you need to find the balance. And finding the balance will allow you to work more in the future to provide more for your family. So just make sure you take a peek at the work schedule. Number 7, I see type A people. This one is like part work and part stress because They just have a belief that they have to do well, they have to do the right thing, they have to be successful. We call this success syndrome. This is actually how I first burned out my adrenals. I was in chiropractic school. I wanted to be as successful as I could. I was going to class all day, studying all night, practicing all weekend. I just never took a break, and slowly my body declined and burned out. And that's actually how I first got into learning about the adrenal glands and how big of an impact they can have on your life, and a lot of times make or break different seasons of your life. Number 8, fearful people. Fear is a stimulator. The brain, the limbic system will stimulate that. It will stimulate the hypothalamus and the pituitary to send messages to the adrenals going, yo, fight or flight, fight or flight. The adrenals handle all stress in your life. Physical stress, working long hours, chemical stress, bad diet, sugary diet, emotional stress, fear, worry, anxiousness, nervousness, anger. All those emotions are overstimulating the adrenals because the body is literally perceiving it as I have to fight something or I have to run away, flight something. So if you're living in that fight or flight state, even if it's just perceived, the body is still making that hormone, that adrenaline output. So pay attention to that. Last one I see most commonly that leads to adrenal fatigue or adrenal imbalances in the office is big life changes. Maybe you changed jobs, maybe you changed careers, maybe you started a business, maybe you got fired, maybe you broke up with a romantic relationship. Especially see this in divorce. Maybe you moved. All of that requires like some big life thing to change, and that usually requires lots and lots of energy or lots and lots of like mentally working through a lot of different things. That will overstimulate the adrenals and cause them to get fatigued, depending of course on your nutrition, your support in your community, things like that, right? So those are the 9 most common things I see in clinical practice that lead to adrenal issues. So what are some ways that you can actually test for adrenal issues? Maybe you identified one of the common things that leads to adrenal issues. Maybe you just understand now the importance of the adrenal gland, and now you want to know, well, can I actually test for them, right? Well, there's 3 different ways that we do it in the office. A lot of people have never heard of the adrenal glands because there's no good drug for them. A lot of people will go and get their thyroid checked, they'll run their blood work, their CBC and stuff. There's not a really good blood test for the adrenals because they make so many different hormones, so many different neurotransmitters. So usually just blood is just a snapshot in time of the adrenal gland. So it's hard to get like a real good picture for how they are actually doing over a 24-hour cycle. Some people have used salivary hormone tests. I've done this before. You do it at 3 or 4 different times during the day, and that can check for salivary cortisol. Cortisol is supposed to be highest at 8 a.m. and then slowly tapers off and is lowest at midnight so you can sleep. A lot of people have a hard time getting up in the morning, having morning energy. That's usually because their cortisol isn't rising to what it's supposed to do at 8 a.m. And they usually will have a harder time falling asleep or staying asleep because their cortisol at night, which usually should be at the lowest, is actually a little elevated. I had this when I first checked my salivary adrenal levels. But some people are disputing the effectiveness of the salivary adrenal tests, so we actually use 3 simple and relatively free tests in the office. One of them is the pen light. So one of the signs of adrenal issues is that you can quickly screen in the office is when you shine a pen into the pupil, what naturally should happen, normal physiology, is the pupil condenses down, right, to prevent all that light coming in. That is controlled by one of the neurotransmitters made by the adrenals. Now if it holds for 20 seconds with the eye, right, with the light in there, that's a sign of a healthy adrenal. If it squeezes down, constricts, right, pupil, and then after like 3, 4, 5 seconds it starts to pulse and get bigger, it's a surefire sign that the adrenals are under functioning. Now there are some other neurological issues that could be included with. Of course, we can rule those out too, but that's just a really simple one. You can do this at home. You could probably do it on like a cell phone camera. Make sure you do it in a dark room and go right in front of a mirror and just check. Easy, okay? The next one is called the postural hypotension test, also called Ragland's sign. Dr. Ragland figured this out. Of course, everyone's got an ego, so they need to put their name on it. But essentially, all you do is you take the blood pressure. I use an electronic one in the office. You put it on your arm, you hit the button, it does the blood pressure. You want to check it seated first or laying down. It doesn't actually matter too much on that one. And then when you record that sign, right? Ideal blood pressure is 120/80. If you're plus or minus 10 on those, it's not a big deal. but you want to get the first one. A lot of times you'll see really low readings, like 100/60. That's actually an adrenal sign as well, because aldosterone is the hormone that is made by the adrenals to tell the kidneys to hold on to sodium and hold on to water and hold on to electrolytes. So if the adrenals aren't making that hormone, blood pressure starts to dip a little bit, okay? There's no drug for low blood pressure, so when your doc takes it, he'll be like, oh, you're fine, go home. But then you have dizziness issues, maybe a little bit of vertigo issues. When you stand up too fast, you feel a little woozy. Those are all adrenal issues, okay? So that's just normal physiology. Now, so after you take the blood pressure and then you stand up, Lady gravity is pushing blood out of your head. It's pushing down, right? So normal physiology, blood pressure actually has to increase when you stand up. The systolic, that top number, 120/80, that's the ideal one. It should go up 10 to 14 points. The bottom one should go up 4 points, okay? So you take it seated, see what it is. You take a stand, you stand up, retake it. If that top number doesn't go up 10 to 14 points, if it stays the same or it drops, that is a sign that your adrenals are not making the hormones necessary to regulate your blood pressure, and that is a sign that your adrenals are tired. Now, one of the things that I added, number 3, the third way to test it in the office, is I just made a symptom survey, a symptom quiz is what we'll call it. And essentially all those symptoms, like getting hard to get out of bed in the morning, people are exhausted in the morning getting going, right? That is one of the many signs that your adrenals are under functioning. When you take your car to the mechanic, it has a check engine light. Symptoms are the body's check engine light. It's basically a way of the body saying, hey, I have something going on, can you please check it out? Now, instead of just, medicating or having a pill for an ill, we're actually trying to figure out what's the underlying root cause of that symptom imbalance in the body that's leading the physiology to show you that you're tired in the morning. Does that make sense? So essentially all these symptoms, you can find this, I actually put this on the website, triune-chiropractic.com/patient-center, and you can go and you can download some of the quizzes that I made for the different organ systems. This is under there, it's the adrenals. I give this to all my new patients, but if you're an online viewer and you've never seen me, take the quiz, see what you score. Hans Selye was the pioneer of stress physiology research, and he identified 3 different stages of adrenal fatigue, is what he would call it. You had stage 1, which is the body's like a little bit stressed out. Stage 2 is the gland is even weaker, starting to have a harder time with stress. And then stage 3 is the weakest version of the organ, essentially, and that's when it's completely dysregulated from the ability to handle stress, and you see all sorts of symptoms. So what I did is I took that concept and I applied it with the symptoms here. So after you take this quiz, you'll add up your score, and depending on what your score is, 1 to 30, 30 to 60, or 60 or higher, that's a pretty good indicator of where your adrenal glands are at. This obviously isn't like scientifically researched, but I've done it on over 500 patients at this point over the last couple of years, and it correlates very highly with the blood pressure test, with the pupillary dilation test, and even with some salivary hormone tests. So we're actually working on getting more research on this because it's been really effective and a really quick screen, and it's also free for patients. Patients like that, we're trying to save them money. So those are 3 different ways that you can screen your adrenals, whether you're in the office or at home, and figure out whether the adrenals are part of your symptom and healing picture, or whether you don't have to worry about them. Alright guys, take care.